Essay number 71. 18 little reminders for anyone who feels like they don't know what they're doing with their life. Let me guess. You're watching this at 2 a.m., scrolling through your phone, wondering what the hell you're doing with your life. Everyone else seems to have it figured out. They're getting married, getting promoted, getting somewhere. And you're getting anxious about not having a 5-year plan. You're getting stressed about not knowing your purpose. You're getting tired of feeling like you're falling behind in a race you never signed up for. Well, I have something to tell you that might change everything. Nobody knows what they're doing with their lives. I'm serious. Not your successful friend, not your put-together coworker, not the influencer whose life looks perfect online. Nobody actually knows what they're doing. Some people have a better idea of what they're working toward, sure, but ultimately, none of us can accurately predict or summarize what our existence is about. We're all just making it up as we go, pretending we have a plan. So let me give you 18 reminders that might just save your sanity. First, you decide what your life is defined by. That feeling of being lost, it's not what happens when you go off path. There is no predetermined path. That feeling is what happens when you forfeit control, when you don't want to accept what's happened to you, when you're so busy wishing things were different that you forget you're still the author of your own story. Being found again isn't about getting back on track. It's about owning what happened and continuing to write the next chapter. Second, you don't need to know where you're going to end up somewhere extraordinary. J.K. Rowling didn't know she was going to be one of the most famous writers in the world. She was just a single mom on welfare, writing a story for her kids in cafes while her baby slept. Steve Jobs didn't know he'd revolutionize how humanity interacts with technology. He was just a college dropout in his garage, tinkering with computers. Oprah didn't know she'd become the queen of media and self-improvement. She was just trying to do her job as a local news anchor. They didn't have a master plan, they just had the next step, and then the next, and then the next. Third, there is absolutely no way you'll be able to predict what you'll be doing 5 years from now. Think about where you were 5 years ago. Did you predict your life would look like this? Of course not. So why do you think you can predict the next 5? And honestly, if you can predict and plan exactly where you'll be in 5 years, you're not dreaming big enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're playing it so safe that you're essentially planning to stay exactly where you are. Fourth, planning your life isn't ambition, it's anxiety management. Having a cohesive idea of what you're doing with your life isn't necessarily productive. It's just a soothing notion. It's a security blanket for your ego. It's a story you tell yourself so you don't have to sit with the uncertainty of being human. Focus instead on what you want to do with today, with this hour, with this moment. That's noble, that's worthwhile, that will actually get you somewhere. Fifth, you owe nothing to your younger self. That person you thought you'd be at 15, at 20, at 25, you don't owe them anything. You're not responsible for fulfilling the dreams of someone who didn't know what life was actually like, someone who didn't know who you'd become. Someone who was operating with a fraction of the information you have now. Your younger self was doing their best with what they knew, but they didn't know much. You don't have to live your life as an apology for not being who they imagined. Sixth, you owe everything to who you are right now. You owe it to yourself, today's version, to ask what you actually like, what you actually want, what actually calls to you, not what you think you should want, not what would impress people, not what would make a good story, what you actually want. And here's a truth bomb. You know why you don't have the things you once thought you wanted? Because you don't want them anymore. Not really, not badly enough to do what it takes to get them. You're probably stuck between realizing you don't want what you once did and giving yourself permission to want what you want now. You're grieving dreams that aren't even yours anymore. So here's your permission slip. Want what you want now, even if it's different, even if it's smaller, even if it's bigger, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. Seventh, stop thinking your way into a new life. Start acting your way into one. If you want to change your life, stop focusing on how lost you feel and start taking actions, any actions, in a positive direction. It doesn't have to be the right direction. It just has to be movement. It's infinitely harder to think your way into a new way of acting than it is to act your way into a new way of thinking. You can sit there analyzing your purpose for the next 10 years, or you can try something tomorrow and see how it feels. Eighth, nobody's life is as good as it looks online. You know this intellectually, but you don't believe it emotionally. You're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You're comparing your rough draft to their final edit. You're comparing your reality to their performance. Nobody cares about your social media presence as much as you do. Nobody's checking to see if you're successful enough, happy enough, together enough. They're too busy worrying about their own performance. And here's what social media has really done to us. It's made us obsessed with the next big goal, the next thing to post about, the next achievement to announce. If you feel like you don't know where your life is going, it's probably because you don't know what your next Instagram-worthy accomplishment should be. But here's the thing. You don't need to accomplish anything to be worthwhile. Read that again. You don't need to accomplish anything to be worthwhile. Very few people are meant to be extraordinary. That's literally what extraordinary means. Beyond ordinary. And that's fine. That doesn't mean you can't know contentment, love, joy, and all the actual wonders of life. In fact, the people chasing extraordinary often miss the ordinary, beautiful things that make life worth living. Ninth, your life is only as good as your perception of it. Feeling lost isn't about your actual circumstances. It's about how you're thinking about them. Two people can have the exact same life, and one feels blessed while the other feels behind. The difference isn't what they have, it's how they see what they have. Not knowing what you're doing is only a problem if you believe you're supposed to know. But what if you're not supposed to know? What if nobody knows? What if the not knowing is the whole point? 10th, stop asking the wrong question. Stop asking, what am I doing with my life? That question is too big, too abstract, too impossible to answer. Start asking, what am I doing with today? Because your life isn't some grand narrative with a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's a collection of days, and the only day you can actually do anything with is this one. So what are you doing with today? Are you moving towards something that matters to you, even in the smallest way? Are you being kind to someone, including yourself? Are you learning something? Are you creating something? Are you resting because you need to? That's all life is, a series of todays. And if you can figure out what to do with today, you're not lost. You're living. Here's what I want you to understand. Feeling like you don't know what you're doing with your life isn't a crisis. It's not a failure. It's not a sign that you're behind or broken or doing it wrong. It's a sign that you're human, that you're aware enough to question, that you're brave enough to admit you don't have all the answers. The people who seem to have it all figured out, they're either lying or they're not paying attention. Life is too complex, too unpredictable, too beautifully chaotic to ever fully figure out. You're not supposed to know what you're doing with your life. You're supposed to be doing something with your life. There's a difference. One is about having answers. The other is about living the questions. So stop waiting to figure it out. Stop waiting for clarity. Stop waiting for the perfect plan or the right moment or the divine revelation about your purpose. Start living. Start trying things. Start failing at things. Start succeeding at things you didn't expect to succeed at. Start surprising yourself. Your life isn't a problem to be solved. It's an experience to be had. And the experience of not knowing what you're doing, that's not a detour from your real life. That is your real life. This confusion, this uncertainty, this searching, this is what being alive looks like. You're not lost. You're just human. And that's exactly where you're supposed to be. The question isn't, what am I doing with my life? The question is, what am I doing right now? And right now, you're exactly where you need to be, even if you don't know where you're going. especially if you don't know where you're going.